Well, Lisa Wilkinson is getting angry and she's not going to take it anymore. The project presenter hosted a passionate editorial about the apparent lack of cooperation from Prince Andrew in the Jeffrey Epstein case. So far, the Prince has not accepted multiple invitations from US authorities to be interviewed. Here's some of what Lisa Wilkinson had to say last night.
Well, as long as Andrew remains under palace protection, we'll never know. And by any standard, that's simply not good enough. For 68 years, the Queen has demonstrated herself to be someone who chooses duty over family, the greater good over personal interests. Surely, in 2020, for Her Majesty and the royal family to retain any authority and respect, if she believes child sex slavery is a scourge that needs to be eradicated and has any empathy for the dozens of victims of Jeffrey Epstein, then she simply has no option but to compel Andrew to fully cooperate with authorities. To quote former Australian of the Year David Morrison, "The standard you walk past is the standard you accept." Your Majesty, with respect, it's time.
Now, this is the Lisa Wilkinson I remember, Ben. It's good to see her on fine form like this, and she's calling out the Queen. Is that the right way to go?
Absolutely. Look, I think at the end of the day, I was starting to look for the receipts for Channel 10 to return Lisa Wilkinson on her efforts on the project because as far as I'm concerned, I've returned clothes for a lot less. And finally, we get to see her being a journalist, which is what she's paid to do. But not only that, but speak to a particular audience, which I think was brilliant. Now, what I would like to take Channel 10 to task and the producers of that show is when you have a fantastic journalist who has done their research and has a powerful message like that, what is the point in playing the music to Backdraft or some giant emotional movie? We don't need that.
No, it's not a problem.
There is nothing. Look, you will say that because you're an executive producer, and I'm telling you, you've put more beef in your stories than Hungry Jack's has put in their burgers. So I can understand where you're coming from.
Oh, I like
but
that.
what I'm saying is there is clear time, and this is the time when Channel 10 needs to realise that we are looking for factual information. We are in a dire circumstance. This on top of so many other things, Black Lives Matter, what we're going through, COVID. The last thing we need is the music to a trailer for Titanic 2. Like, we don't need it. And that's all I have to say about that one.
Yeah, you've had a couple of cups of coffee this morning. It's obvious. David, I have to say it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because as a member of the royal family, I guess you are protected in some ways. There's a bit of he said, she said going on here because Prince Andrew has said, I'll answer some questions they haven't asked. The US are saying, we have asked and you have said no. So imagine if a member of the royal family did get extradited to the US and actually had to face charges over this. This would be a huge deal.
It would be a massive deal, Robert. I watched a really great documentary, I think, called The House of Windsor on Netflix. And it basically said at the very beginning of episode 1, it's called The Firm. It's yes. Everyone knows that. The firm will survive at any cost. Now, to have him extradited or answer to charges or answer to interviews simply cannot happen. The firm will not allow it. Now, whether the firm can, have that much power or that much pushback in 2020, I'm not too sure. But I would think that all of these things are so deeply, deeply connected. All of these powerful people have been photographed with Epstein. I just don't think they're going to let it fall. There are reports that Ghislaine Maxwell will not, roll over and, give over all of these things, all of these details, rather, about people who had been with her. I just don't think you'll see it. Interestingly, though, the Queen is the only person, I guess, almost in the world, possibly, maybe in other royal families, but at least in the UK or in the Commonwealth, she can't be ever prosecuted for any kind of crime, ever. That's just a little rule or a law there that makes it happen. However, that law does not extend to any other member of the family. So what we're going to see here is a lot of strings pulled in the background. I will be shocked, and I'm happy to replay this.
Bus? You just said that the royal family will do whatever it takes to survive. Could you see a scenario where the Queen throws him under the bus? He's done a lot of damage to the royal family. Yeah. Could they actually say, it's like politics, the hint of a whiff and you're out, you have to resign. Could they throw him under the bus?
Well, you're right. It's almost like that she would wish, the Queen, Her Majesty, I know you're watching, thank you, that she would wish that she could come back to. Remember, she called a year, anus
horribilis.
Something. Yes, because it was so bad. I reckon she wishes that all she had to deal with were affairs and things like that after this thing. Possibly. She did do something really quickly, and we've got to remember this, is that she almost instantly pulled Prince Andrew. He will now no longer be part of any kind of royal engagements. He won't be.
Yes.
I think his patronage has been removed. So she did that very quickly.
Well, that was straight after that disastrous interview he did, where he went.
Yeah.
He did this interview thinking, "I'll do an interview, I'll clear it all up," and it left a lot more questions than it started, and basically gave the momentum for people to think there's something going on here, and he's hiding something.
And that's what I think. Don't you think that because the Buckingham Palace then, put out a press release like they do and said, this didn't happen. This is absolute rubbish, blah, blah, blah. And then he did that interview where it didn't stand up. So is there not kind of an admission of guilt? Not by the Queen, but just to go, this is smelling to high heaven. He's out.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see because America is actually taking a pretty tough stance with this. So they're not letting it go, which you might think for the purpose of relations that they might do, but they're not letting it go. So this is going to be fascinating to see. And with the arrest of the woman at the centre of all this, a lot of people are saying, will she end up dead just like Epstein? Because she knows where all the bodies are buried, basically.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.